Hello and welcome to the Novel Creature Network. I'm Montrez, your host. And if you are tuning in now, you know the deal. We are here connecting readers, streamers, and our fellow creatives to talk about our shared love of speculative fiction. And today I have a most wonderful guest. I'd like to introduce you to Krystina Coles, author of YA Dark Fantasy. And she's doing so many other things that we're going to get into today. So thank you so much for joining us, Krystina, and for being on the Novel Creature Network with us. I'm excited to chat about what's up with you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yes, yes. So we're going to dive right in because we've got some exciting things to explore. But one of the things we always ask here is, what's your author origin story?
Well, goodness, that's actually a long answer. Because I started reading mythology when I was like 5 or 6,
Mhm.
and I like became obsessed with it. And I wanted to tell stories like that would last a long time after I was gone, especially the ones that like scared people a little bit.
Mhm.
And so I started writing, and then around 8th grade, I kind of decided that that's what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And unfortunately, a teacher kind of talked me out of it. She said, like, "Oh, writing isn't a lucrative career. You're not going to make a lot of money out of it. It's not worth any time," without actually reading anything that I had written. So it
Okay.
wasn't really anything, but I should have taken like as actual advice anyway. But I was a huge people pleaser back then, so I just said okay, and I went into a different career. And then around 2014, a writing buddy of mine, that I had in high school, we would still share stories, even though I kind of decided I was going to put that to the side. She actually passed away like right after high school graduation. And
Oh,
so,
wow.
yeah, so, goodness. So experiencing that while like already in this new career, because I went on to become a pastry chef, I realized I kind of chose my second option, which is like okay for some people, but I had always loved writing. That was always like the main thing that I'd always wanted to do. And my friend had encouraged me all throughout high school. And so losing her kind of just, I don't know, put it on my heart that I needed to get back into writing, not only to honor her, but to honor myself and what I was meant to do in the first place.
Oh, wow. I've got goosebumps on that because that's powerful. But I think what your author origin story shows is that our words are powerful, whether it's something positive or negative, how it can affect us, and your teacher not even reading, not even taking the time, puts you on a track that, you know what I mean, and kind
Mm-hmm.
of influence that. But then you had somebody in your corner who was always cheering for you, and that kind of helped you find your way back to what you really wanted to do. And so, guys, our words are powerful. And I think on that, we have to focus on those things that build us and not that tear us down. And that's awesome that you had your friend in your corner
Mm-hmm.
for that. But with that, you just totally, you just kind of totally said, yeah, I work as a pastry chef. You still do do you do both right now, or are you solely doing your author journey?
I'm still doing pastry like a little bit, not as much as I used to. But I'll do like a wedding cake every now and then. I make chocolates and everything too. So, but it's
God.
mostly writing right now.
So when you have your live events, do you like bake your own goods and like
I feel like that would be so much pressure. Um, I haven't had like a real like big book launch party yet, and I really want to have one like really soon. So I might bake for that one. We'll see.
that would be really cool. Yeah, that would be so cool to like showcase all the talent that you've got because even though being a pastry chef wasn't your first like option, that's awesome to have like to be multi-talented and to use your gifts and your creativity in more than one way. So I think that's amazing and that's beautiful.
Thank
Um,
you.
but with that, what would you say is your creative superpower?
My creative superpower. I think. probably world building, and then also just finding some like really great poetic descriptions of things because I love gothic literature, and so just leaning like way into that is like my favorite thing.
What would you say is one of your favorite? Because I love Gothic literature as well. What would you say is one of your favorite like works? Like, what got you into Gothic literature?
Um, I don't know if this maybe it counts as gothic. Frankenstein is just,
Yes.
oh man, that one like it got me. Like I had like a visceral reaction reading. It's yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then also modern gothic literature. I
Mhm.
love Alexis Henderson. She's also a Black author, and she writes like the most beautifully like dark and also like almost grotesque work. It's incredible. I love everything that she writes.
So yes, so when you mentioned Frankenstein, there's something I think that was like the romantic period in history, like the classic romanticism. I am a sucker for those. So like all the angst and the like atmospheric brooding drama, I just yes, I'm there with you. I'm so there with you. And you said Alexis Henderson.
Yes,
So
amazing.
what's some of her work? I think I know which one you're talking about. Didn't she have like a vampire one that came out?
Yes, yes.
Oh, what
The
was that?
House of Hunger. So
Yes,
good.
that was so good.
Oh my
So yeah,
gosh, I love it.
so yeah, I'm with you on that. So world building and kind of like the having the beautiful prose as something that you specialize in. Can you talk about like maybe what inspires you, like the worlds that you create? How do you put all that together? Because it's something, to take something that doesn't exist and then to create this complex, like immersive, completely new world. How do you do that?
Um, I kind of like to build it in a way where I can feel like I can live in it. So I'll have like 20 documents worth of like details of like how the world exists, kind of. And
Hmm.
then I just kind of like sit in the world, and then I think about what it would like to be like, what it would be like to actually like exist in it, I guess. Like I don't know how to describe it.
Well, I think you're onto something because just pulling from like gothic horror and gothic romance and like just that gothic readings, like I think one of the elements that they always have is that like even the house or the location, the setting, it's like its own person, it has
Right.
like its own characteristics. And so I can see how like maybe world building would be like, you're creating a place that is almost its own character.
Hmm.
And so I'm excited to kind of get into like what that looks like in Krystina's writing in your world, because you've got like I think a beautiful blend of different things going on. You've got like the gothic, but you've got like an effervescent kind of like fairy tale type thing going on. Like
Hmm.
when you look at your content, and I think I'm really excited to explore that. But before we get into your worlds, what's your kryptonite?
Oh goodness. I think I do have a problem with plot holes sometimes. Like I'll like I just won't think about something and it'll come up and I'm like, oh man, I need to figure out how to fix that. And I'll spend hours trying to figure out what the problem is, and then I'll wake up at like 2 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, does this make sense? I might have an answer, but I'm not sure if it works. So I have a problem with that sometimes.
So what would your like how do you like fix those? Because that is a thing. Like I just recently in my sequel book to like my first book that I have, Errant,
Mhm.
the sequel, like I was reading through it and it just like didn't hit. I'm like, something's wrong. And I'm like, their problem's not big enough. So I had to like go back like from like the first chapter and just like rework the whole thing because the plot just like it just wasn't working and the characters were rebelling. How do you deal with that? Like when the story, like when you have those little pitfalls and plot holes.
Well, usually I'll give it to my sister because she's
Mhm.
probably like my number one fan, and I'll have her read it, and then like so she's kind of like caught up with what's going on in my story, and then right when she's about to go to bed, I'll kind of like corner her and I'll tell her like, okay, this is my problem. And she'll just kind of stand at her bedroom door and be like, until I figure it out myself.
But you know what? There's something in that, like, God bless our families who like deal with us, like, because I do that too. I think I ramble and I talk to my husband about stuff, and he'll just give me like a blank face, like, okay. And then I'm like, oh, I know what to do. You know, shout out to all of the family members who are there for us as writers when we're in our creative like frenzies and stuff. We love you guys.
Yeah.
But I'm with you on that. Like sometimes we're so close to like in the worlds that we're creating that we don't notice like those little things. But
Mhm.
that's real talk. Um, but like back to the amazing worlds that you've created. Let's get into it. So you said that you are inspired by like the Gothic, modern Gothic, and like the classical Gothic writings. So how does that play into your worlds, and what do they look like?
Um, Probably, I do like to pursue a certain kind of tone to the story.
Hmm.
So I'll throw in like lots of imagery that seems like kind of dark, but also like really beautiful at the same time. So uh, I don't know if I have any like examples, but
Well,
I don't
take
know.
us on a tour of your world. So you have two books that are out currently.
Mhm.
Um, let us know what are their names and like what it's about and like what that setting is. If we were to step into the pages of your book, what would that be like?
Okay. So I have two books out so far, and they're both YA dark fantasy, but they're also cross genre. So there's Moon Shadow, and that is set in Oklahoma, like Cedar Crest of 2009 for a reason. There's like lots of time travel and everything. But it's, it's a small town, which kind of adds to like the gothic feel to it. And everything kind of seems really idyllic until you realize that something like a lot darker is going on. And then there's like a lot of scenes in the woods. Everything bad happens in the woods, which I love. I don't know. That's just with me. And then it kind of turns into like a dark fantasy where we see a different kind of reality almost, or like a different world. And it's and there's like a lot of imagery where it's like really ornate and beautiful, but also there's still like a darkness behind it. And then going into Sunblood, which is its sequel, that one's set in 1941 New York, and then goes back to Egypt, 41 BC, I believe. And so there's also like in the beginning, there's like a ghost and an orphanage, and it's really creepy. And there's like mention of drowning a lot, and it's just oh gosh, I love writing about that with like the ghosts and everything. And then moving into Egypt and there being like goddesses and gods and like monsters, and so I feel like a lot of that kind of adds to like the tone, like overall tone that I wanted of like a gothic horror, but also like adventure and like fantasy and everything.
Yeah, so like you said, it has time travel in it too. And so you have that historical element in there as well, because you have like you start in like 2009
Mm-hmm.
and then in the sequel. Now, for the sequel, is it like the same characters or is it like a new set of characters or related?
It it does have the same characters from the first book, but I add another cast of characters as well.
So you are taking us through different time periods because 2009, like, oh my gosh, it seems like just yesterday, but it's really like 20, it's almost 20 years, 15,
Yeah,
20
oh
years.
gosh.
So 2009 looks totally different than like the 1900s. And then you take us to Egypt. Like, so we
Hmm.
go from this small, idyllic, seemingly pleasant town that has like a dark little underbelly to it. And then you take us to Egypt. And wow, that's a lot. So I'm intrigued because and then let's talk about the woods too, because there is something about having like those dark gothic stories with the element of nature in it. So is this woods? Is it going to be like a central piece that we're going to see frequently throughout this series?
Um, I think I want to keep it to maybe just that one.
Hmm.
Well, well, I can't say that because there something happens in the woods in the second one too. But we'll see. I feel like since there's a lot of time travel moving forward, there might be like there might be more settings like in the city, but it really just depends on how I feel like wanting it to go. But I feel like we're probably gonna like leave the woods, probably move into the city, maybe the desert next time, because I do have a lot planned. So
That's awesome. So with time travel, so not only are we traveling like across time, but you're taking us out of this small town. So we'll be going to Egypt. Where else will we be going?
um well, for the next one, and this is probably like a little like a sneak peek. I'm not done with it yet, so but the next one I was planning on taking us to probably like the 1950s DC, like with McCarthyism and everything, because that's also like a really interesting period.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, how, with that, because you can go anywhere in the world and anytime with your stories, what makes you select these locations and these times? How does it relate to the themes and the narratives that you have in your book?
I usually actually create my characters first, and then
Mhm.
I create the world around them. So I had characters, and I wasn't sure exactly where to put them, and I kind of picked different type like points in time, and decided like you know what, that's where they fit, that's where it makes sense, kind of thing.
Um, since you said that you kind of built like the characters or you build the characters first and then you shape the world around that, can you tell us about your main characters and why those time periods and locations are significant?
Sure. So so I love history. I love it so much, and so I wanted to include like certain points in time. So for example, there's Melissa Moonshadow. She's the main character in the first, well, Melissa Moonwater, sorry. She's the main character in Moonshadow. And I had written her around the time when I was, that's making sense. I had wanted to put her in a year where certain moon phases were happening because I'm very specific and I wanted it to be like as accurate as possible. um, and then moving to Maladry or Marjorie, depending on like what she feels like being called at the time. She's in 1941 New York and then also Egypt, and I really wanted to include like Caesar and Cleopatra and everything, and so I wanted like that time period in Egypt to be included, and then of course World War II and how the child refugees from Europe had to be sent over to America. I wanted that to be included too. So that's how I went ahead and put them in there like that.
That's awesome. So I'm excited to really dig into that. Your work has been on my TBR, and so I'm excited to push that up and like
Oh,
read that because that's really fascinating. I always love elements of time travel, and oh my gosh, I love when settings are just as much of a character as the characters themselves. And so the way that you've shaped your worlds here along with the characters, I'm excited to see kind of like that relationship and how that works. Um, but with that, you've got another story that is out in the world now, a recent release in our anthology that we worked on together, Once Upon a Realm. Can we talk about that?
yes.
So first of all, what was it like for you to work on the anthology? This was my first anthology, and I had a blast. What was it like for you during the process?
It was my first as well, and I really enjoyed it. It was I don't know why, but I had like a hard time figuring out what I wanted to write in the beginning, but I knew what fairy tale I wanted to retell. Uh, but it took me like a really long time to figure it out. Like I was agonizing over it for months actually. but um but when I finally got around to writing it, like it's probably like my favorite thing that I've written so far, just because of like how far I leaned into like the gothic, and then also like since my other stories, Moon Shadow and Sunblight, are also kind of like magical realism because they're set in the real world, and this one isn't. So I got to have as much like freedom to write whatever I wanted, basically,
Right.
and I really enjoyed it so much.
Definitely. And I think too, I feel you on like the angst of having to like choose, like literally you could pick anything. And I think shout out to KRS McIntyre for like pulling all this together. Because for me, there was no stress on her, like from her. She made it like she had everything set up and organized so well. Like I was the problem on my end because like trying to figure out what story do I want to write? Because I think first she asked us like what fairy tale, because for those who don't know, Once Upon a Realm is the anthology that we just released on May 24th. And it is inspired by classic tales and fairy tales for our YA audience, and we wanted to have diverse tales in that. And the amazing KRS McIntyre put that together, and she kind of like put a call out for that. And I think the first thing she asked us was what fairy tale we wanted to kind of like use for like the foundation of our stories. Was that hard for you to select which fairy tale you wanted to pick, and what fairy tale did you pick?
It wasn't hard. I knew exactly what I wanted to retell. um, but I picked Bluebeard, which is probably one of the darkest ones that like you've ever heard of, which is why I chose it because I wanted to like still keep that like dark tone of my series, but like have like a little bit of a fairy tale element to it.
And with Bluebeard, because it's not one that you hear a lot about, can you tell us like what Bluebeard is about, and like then like segue that into these sapphire walls and tell us what your story is?
Do you want spoilers is the question.
We want whatever nuggets you want to give us that aren't as spoiler, like tease us, but don't spoil it.
Okay. So Bluebeard is written by the same guy, Charles Perrault, who wrote Cinderella.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of the same elements like in that one, except Bluebeard starts at the ball and then things take an interesting turn from there.
Is it like Red Wedding, like Game of Thrones? Red Wedding, interesting term?
Uh, not exactly. I could reference a Game of Thrones character, but I don't want to say that because then that would ruin it.
All right. So, guys, if you haven't read Bluebeard, check it out because it sounds like there's some like violence in there.
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay, so there's blood, there's gore, and there's like a party. Ooh. Tell us more.
Well, I guess I could segue into these Sapphire Walls, like from that. But I feel like I pretty much retold the same story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of a twist at the end because you don't want to make it predictable. But I put witchcraft into it, and since this ties into the Moon Shadow series, then there's that same world that we see in Moon Shadow. But we get to see like a lot more of it. We see all of the world building that I had set up like years ago because we were going to be visiting this world again, hopefully soon. But you just really get to see everything in like a different perspective because it's a different person, someone who's always lived in that world. And like the politics involved because there's like royal courts, so like there are noblewomen, and there's like poisoning happening and everything. And so it's just like a really, really interesting world that I loved making, and then putting the fairy tale into it kind of just made perfect sense.
And that's fantastic because who doesn't love a good party? And then like you throw in like all the drama. You've got the political intrigue. Guys, get on this. If you haven't checked out our anthology, then please go ahead. You can pause this video here, or open up another tab and just go ahead and purchase that, because we've got a host of different stories that have they're all so different and unique, but it's all based on like all the fairy tales that we know and love. which brings me to a question for our listeners and our fellow readers. Let us know. The novel creature question is, what is your favorite fairy tale or classic tale? It may be incorporated in our anthology, Once Upon a Realm. And if you are a fairy tale fanatic, then you've probably heard about Bluebeard and you know what goes on. And so I have to confess that's one that I have not read. So
Oh,
it's really now I need to go and like read that one.
you are in for a ride. I'm telling you right now.
That sounds like it. So, what can I ask you? Titles. Titles are always difficult for me. How did you come up with the title for yours? And is that something that's going to appear in the book, or is it just like?
I did want to have like a blue motif in the story,
Mhm.
um, because of Bluebeard, but but I wanted to kind of step away from Moonshadow and Sunblood, like those portmanteau words, and kind of lean into like what titles are we have today, but still
Mhm.
like kind of keep it as something that's like mine. So it feels kind of ominous and beautiful at the same time, but it still feels like it's YA.
I love that. Yeah, because that definitely like now knowing, you know what I mean? We know it's fairy tale and knowing your style, it does have like it sounds pretty, but it does sound like it could be something else. Like
Hmm.
something like dark or spooky behind that. So yes, guys, get on this. Get our Once Upon a Realm anthology and hook into her other worlds. Not only is she taking us from small idyllic, seemingly idyllic towns to um, other locate like deep and dark woods, but we also get to time travel and go to places like Egypt and stuff. So, I mean, that sounds like a vacation right there. All I'm opening a book, which is exactly what I think we as writers, we aim to do. And so I think that's amazing, 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 amazing. Um, but in that, how can readers best celebrate and support you and your work? Because you've got some amazing things going on and you're multi talented. Not only are you a pastry chef, not only do you spin out these amazingly like dark but beautiful stories, but if anybody follows you online, we see that you also create costumes.
That's
Can you
true.
talk about that?
Oh gosh. Well, I guess if you wanted to jump onto my page, check out the things that I sew, because it's like it's I don't know, it's different than my writing and my baking, as in it's just like something that I can just put all my creativity in and not have to worry about, I don't know, like selling it, I guess. That's just mine. That's like my thing. And like I don't want to have to monetize it. Like I might eventually, but so if you're interested in buying anything, let me know, because then I will like at least consider it. But just following me in my page and encouraging me, because I do get imposter syndrome all the time. So I do need encouragement. Um, but yeah, and then like buying my books and letting me know what you think. That would be great. Telling your friends, if you have any friends who are like huge book nerds and like love mythology like me, because mythology is a huge thing in my books. Huge. Like mythology and history is just like all in there. But yeah, and then like this in my page, like my website, which is just my name.com. And then also when I go to fairs, because I'm hosting a book fair with a friend of mine in October, actually. Come to the fair, come to any fair that I might be at, any fair, but you have a friend who's a writer who's going to be attending. Just support your writer friends, you guys.
That's awesome. And I think that's beautiful too. Like sometimes as creatives, to have something just for us. So I love seeing like your designs and the things that you do. Like because I think for Black Fae Day, you had like a highlight of all the costumes and different things that you do, and
Right.
that's just so amazing. I love seeing all the creativity. And so, guys, definitely follow Krystina. If you are watching, we have kind of like all the places you can follow her running across the screen. It will also be in our show notes. So definitely check out her beautiful website. Follow her on Instagram. You will not be disappointed. She has some really amazing content on there. I know I always leave feeling inspired when I see your page. So it's wonderful to support and follow you that way as well. I want to do something new on here, kind of like tagging. So I do ask for like reading recs, and you name drop some, but who would you like to see featured here on Novel Creature Network? What author would you like to give a shout out to, or authors that you think our novel creatures should read?
Ooh, do you want indie or traditional?
Give me both. We want all the goods.
Okay, so I do have a friend who's not very good at advertising himself, and his name is Steven Shinder, and like we went to high school together, so like he was also in my writing club and everything, and so we would share stuff together. And he writes science fiction, but like with creatures in it, and it's like a little weird, and he has like a million puns like in the stories, but it's so interesting. It's almost like a modern Alice in Wonderland kind of
Oh, wow.
vibe. And he's so introverted, and I really, really want people to read his stuff. So please read Steven Shinder's books, please.
Modern Alice in Wonderland. I'm already intrigued. So yeah, that would be cool. I think that's something too, guys. Like a lot of us creatives, we are really shy, and like you hit on, Krystina, we're not always like, we don't know how to like market sometimes, and we have that imposter syndrome. You know, we want you to buy our books, but like we're scared to talk to you sometimes, or we discount our stuff, and we're just like, oh, who wants to buy my little book? And here, like, it's just what you might be looking for. So if you read our work, you like it, please let us know. Like your support, your words, like we talked about in the beginning, have so much power, and your opinion matters. So if you read these Sapphire Walls, if you read Moon Shadow and all the goodness that Krystina has, go ahead, hop on Instagram and say, I love your book. You are not bothering us when you do that. Seriously, though. And then if you do have our book and you would like to read with us, join me on Fable all month long. This June, we will be reading it together, and we will have like little fun facts in there. Some of our authors might come in and say hey, and you can kind of connect and ask them questions. But join us on Fable for a read along, and we can chat and have fun that way too. So there will be links to that as well. But Krystina, thank you again so much for being on here. Thank you for joining us. I'm so excited about everything you have going on, from cakes to costumes and everything that you are writing. Could you just leave us with a word of inspiration to anyone who's listening?
Absolutely. So just kind of returning to our conversation in the beginning, don't let anybody talk you out of your dream. Like just kind of going from where I was at the time. It took me so long to return to what I loved in the first place because someone talked me out of it. And I don't want anyone to go through that. I don't want anyone to feel like their dream isn't worth it, because it absolutely is.
Yes.
And sure, you might not be immediately successful like overnight. Like that doesn't really happen to most people. But if you're really passionate about it, if you love it and it's something that you've always like wished, always dreamed that you could do, it's absolutely worth it. Absolutely. So please don't let anyone talk you out of your dream.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for being on here today and for those words. And to everyone that tuned in, be sure to like, spread the word about what we're doing, subscribe, and follow Krystina on all the socials, and buy all of her books, buy all of my books. And join us for this month. We're doing our first read along with our anthology. You're going to be able to read through fairy tale inspired stories. They're diverse worlds set in dystopian and fantasy settings. And you'll discover even more amazing authors, both us and four other authors. So check that out. You won't be disappointed. And until next time, happy reading.